All right. Well, welcome back. Hopefully, you're joining us again. I'm Curtis Gerhart,
I'm Stephen Miller.
and welcome to Horror of the Worlds.
But there's no radio at all. Not even with the bombing plane that's coming over. All radio is dead.
It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
We're going to make you one of the rising up.
Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the beginning of horror movies for the most part. Yeah. You know, like where it all started, how it started for the most part. Hopefully, we all find this entertaining enough. I mean, I did. I learned actually a lot through all this, like actually during a lot of research. Like, I didn't realize that, like, photography for the most part was created back in, or loosely created back in 1717 from Johann Heinrich Schultz. Created like photography where it was almost like a flash image on like a piece of metal for the most part.
Right on.
And so like fucking Germans to do the first thing again.
The Germans.
Fucking over 300 years ago, man. Like that is kind of crazy. Like the next thing that was close, like that was just almost more so like words and letters and stuff.
Right.
But it was a form of photography to begin with. And then about almost exactly 100 years later, roughly, God, man, I hate these names so much. I think it's Josef Nechfori Nipesh in 1816, creating an image that was closer to actual photography. If I'm not mistaken, this was more so flash imagery on a white leather, if I remember correctly.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
And stuff. So
That's pretty cool.
and about 60 or so years ago, like the first in 1878, the first creation of like motion pictures
Oh.
and stuff, which this one is created from Edward James Muggeridge. But we all, if we're up to date on our horror movies for the most part, like everyone has seen this image, and that's the horse in motion that was in Nope.
Oh, all right.
You know, my great grandfather, one more great. You know, but that's was like the birth of imagery for the most part, pictures. Like I felt like we should start it off there to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of always nice to have a little bit of background on how all this stuff started.
Yeah, I didn't realize it went that far back. Damn.
Neither did I. When I did a quick research, I thought it was like, you know, early 1840s, you know, something like that. You know, Back to the Future 3, you know. But no, like 300 years ago, all this stuff has started. Fucking insane. I don't know. I got a question for you though.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about coffee?
Oh man, favorite. It's a must.
Like that, like almost any form of caffeine. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's something about coffee itself. Like it's just like you can't beat that rush. You kind of get that taste, even that bitterness.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know. I'm bringing this up because, as funny as it is, George Méliès, like when he actually built his first camera, he actually called it the coffee grinder and stuff like that, and also the machine gun because of how fucking loud the thing was and stuff. So like it was just kind of crazy on how I think that's like probably one of the reasons why everything was silent as well, was that camera was super freaking loud.
Hey, good luck getting audio over that shit.
Right. Like I don't, have you ever seen the movie Amsterdam? I want to say it's Amsterdam. Hey, is this thing on? Oh, I made a mistake here. Meant to say Babylon, not Amsterdam. Both great movies, but I misspoke here. Continue to enjoy.
I don't think so. I don't think I've seen Amsterdam.
It's, oh gosh, So it is like loosely shot like early like Hollywood for the most part, not a horror movie, but it was the whole time frame when they were the silent movies into the talkies, like when they actually started talking all that stuff, and like they joke around on how loud the camera was, like where the camera had to be in a freaking soundproof box with like no air conditioning, like there's no air conditioning with all this makeup, all these lights and all that stuff, and it was just like it had to be dead silent for the mics to be picked up and actually be audible. Like it was just
That sounds fucking difficult to travel with, man.
dude, like there was no traveling for the most part. Like it was just kind of crazy on like it was like you set the camera up, you stay there, like you have this area to work in. You know?
Make it happen.
But yeah, I guess like a little bit of background on George Méliès. I know I'm probably butchering that, but his first camera that the first camera that he used was a kinetograph. I want to say that's how it's pronounced. Robert Houdin, which was a nickname coffee grinder and machine gun due to how loud the camera was while filming. Loud and cumbersome, it had the same issues many cameras around this time had, which was the inability to move, which led to a lot of static filming.
So this thing must have been like fucking massive, right? I mean,
by the looks of it,
torso size.
it kind of looks like it was almost like torso size. I'm gonna say, I know. I just think it's kind of crazy on how, just how that all started off for the most part. Like just the name, just something so brass.
Yeah.
But Georges Méliès was born on December 8th, 1861 in Paris, France. As an inventive young kid with a father that was a shoemaker, he spent most of his time working with his father until he had to do mandatory 3-year military service, which seemed like that was what was going on in France, where more than likely, I didn't read this part, but I'm assuming if you're a male, you had to join the military services. You know what I mean? We'll talk about this subject even later, but I know a lot of it was they were trying to create a lot of families again because they had population issues. Not there was too much, it was not enough. So they were trying to create a lot of women to stay at home and be mothers and stuff. And it didn't quite work out for them. Well, it worked, but it didn't work at the same time. I mean, even in America, we try to do the same damn thing.
Right.
But yeah, after his 3-year service, or while he was in his 3-year service, he spent a lot of his time with one of his father's friends at the Egyptian Hall in London, where he actually found the interest of like illusions, like the whole like magic and all that stuff. Like
yeah. The root of movie magic coming on. Huh?
I want to almost say that's where like it had to have come from for the most part, was his love of magic and stuff. And like he like later on, like he continued to work for his father, like making shoes. He actually ended up, once when he got back to Paris, he started studying at, I'm going to put this on the screen because I'm going to butcher the name anyways, and if someone wants to do some research on it, École des Beaux-Arts. Yeah, he went to a school to actually start learning how to do magic. He wasn't just interested in it. He actually found it like interesting and wanted to learn how to do it and all the magic behind the magic for the most part.
Nice.
But yeah, he started going. He found a theater back in Paris at Robert Houdin that Robert Houdin owned. Sorry, my writing is horrible. So the theater he went to was a theater Robert Houdin owned by magician Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin. After his father retired in 1888, Georges sold off his shares to his family's business to buy that theater. Due to his activity there and creating a trick where he actually removed his head while continuing to speak and stuff.
Oh, what a trip.
And stuff. I mean, you gotta think this is the 1880s and all this stuff. Like, wow, this is going on. Like,
Yeah.
this stuff. Like, I remember watching movies like with Chris Angel and all that stuff. Like with him doing it in Las Vegas,
Right, yeah.
still creeping people out.
Well, even people like Amazing Johnathan who put a little comedic twist or slight violence into their act. It's fucking great.
Dude, I freaking love the amazing Johnathan, regardless of what he does in his personal life. I love his fucked up sense of humor.
Yeah.
Is there any rubber or latex?
No.
Okay. What you're about to see is just a trick. It's a trick. It's a trick. You see, it's stage blood. It's riding on the surface of my arm. It's not penetrating my arm. That would be real. This is an illusion. This is real. Look. Check it out. It's a trick.
Dude, he is phenomenal. If anyone hasn't seen it and you're hearing this for the first time, check him out. Don't look into his history, his personal life. Just check out his stand-up. Like, it is...
Yeah.
He continued to speak. He was given an invitation to an event hosted by the Lumiere brothers, which these are the guys that actually created more so the actual camera and stuff. This was actually kind of created more so over in Europe, while America was kind of doing their own thing roughly around this time as well. But when George actually went to this this event, like that's where he actually fell in love with motion pictures, actually putting all this onto film and actually recording magic in ways.
Right.
But he, at the same time though, like he had money, and he was trying to actually purchase the camera from the brothers, but they was like, no, like pretty much screw you. Like I think he was offering them was like 10,000 francs at the time, which I did not do the math, but I mean 10,000 in anything is
the bank there. Yeah.
I would almost want to assume it's probably like 10, like at least 50,000 or so, something like in our money nowadays. But I mean, cameras were expensive back then. Now, I mean, shoot, we're still paying $1,600 on a cell phone.
Yeah. Oh man, cell phones
You know.
are fucking ridiculous.
But it's like, oh, it's only $40 a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he hunted down. He went. George Méliès ended up going all over Europe, trying to find anything that resembled the camera or something that he could actually make his own. He did end up coming across a device invented by Robert W. Paul, the animatograph. I'm horrible at this. After modifying it and making his own films, like his own film stock in Paris, since the only place to actually get film stock back then, like the actual film strips, was in London, but he wasn't stationed in London. A couple years later, in 1897 to like 1912, he founded the Star Film Company. Like this was his company, his pretty much child, where he did a shit ton of movies, and by shit ton I mean roughly about 500 movies.
Ooh, dang.
Yeah,
that's a lot of time.
like it might be a little bit north, a little bit south of it. The only issue with that, like I don't know if we would actually ever get a actual answer of how many actual movies that was actually made from him. They were roughly ranging anywhere from like about a minute to about 40 minutes in length. So I mean, they're not movies by today's standards.
It was lengthy for that time.
But that's what you were able to do with the film stock and everything back then. But like pretty much by the end of his career, only about like 200 of the movies have survived. So that's about like 300. Let's say it is 500. That's 300 movies that just vanished from Earth. There's no traces from them or anything. Just something that he might have written down as someone saw and someone repeated, and it's just written down somewhere.
That's unfortunate.
Like it's not the first, and it's not the last any of this has ever happened. A really shitty thing is a lot of those movies, since they were, oh gosh, I did not write it down on here. Because of what the film stock was made out of, they melted it down to make soles, like the heels of soldiers' boots for like World War I and all that stuff.
Oh man!
So his history is literally being trampled on from soldiers.
fucking brutal.
Like that. I mean, he also like set fire to like some of his negatives and stuff because he had no place to like hold them and keep them. Because I mean, it's actually a lot of work to actually keep that film stock preserved. I don't even know what their preservation was back then for film stock, but nowadays you need climate, temperature controlled and stuff, and it takes up a lot of space for these reels. But yeah, that's a quick background on the man, like the Godfather himself, the man that created this genre that we love.
Yeah,
you know, that started all of this.
Yeah,
the reason that the two people that are watching are watching us right now. But all right, let's talk about the first movie that he actually made that was horror. This was in 1896, the Le Manoir du Diable, the Haunted Castle or House of the Devil. It was actually, like, I don't know if probably should have had you watch this or even play it on the screen. It would be so nice. But it was, I think, like one of the films like where you actually see a lot of his magic tricks coming on screen. It was a lot of like people reappearing and disappearing out of nowhere, turning into smoke. There was pretty much the devil for the most part. So he was, I think there was a part of the scene where he ends up killing someone like with a skeleton, freaking turns into a bat, oh gosh, I wish I rewatched it just moments before this. I could actually be a little bit more. I just remember just seeing all the effects. Like he was just picking up people, throwing them in a cauldron, smoke.
Okay, I think I have seen that one. It was like probably a few years ago that I watched it though.
The one you might have seen is one that we'll be talking about here in a few minutes, honestly, because that one is probably more well known. This movie was only about like 4 minutes. That movie was only, I think, about a minute or so.
Yeah, it was about a minute long.
But this is actually a pretty interesting story when we get to that one. Hold on one moment before we get there. But the way he found out about some of this like disappearing or reappearing is because of camera malfunctions of it. Like it'll stop rolling and stuff, and then he has to end up like hitting it and stuff, and it kind of gives it different effects. Like he is.
That's fucking cool. Yeah, make it work for you.
Like that's the thing. Like I think we even talked about like Evil Dead. Like, you know, through no money comes necessity, and you find a way to make things work. Yeah. They strapped a camera onto a board, and it's a shaky cam instead of a steady cam. It works for the Evil Dead. You know, I mean, you have to be creative when you have nothing. Right. And at this time, he's creating everything. Another one of his movies, like, granted, I mean, he's made countless movies, ranging from all different genres. But we're talking about his horror movies for the most part. Another one he did was Bluebeard in 1901, which was about an aristocrat that wanted another wife, but no one wanted to marry him due to the other 7 women mysteriously vanished and stuff. Mystery. Yeah, so I mean, he went off on a exposition, you know, like on travels. Ended up finding another man that would offer up his daughter for him and all that stuff. But it's just that's just a taste of one of his films. Slightly off topic, but he also created one of the probably most well-known images that everyone has seen, and that is from his 1902 film, A Trip to the Moon.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's even to the point like Futurama has episodes and does homages to that moon where it has a ship, or in Futurama, the bottle stuck in the eye. But this was like one of the very first sci-fi films too. So not only is he the godfather of horror films, he's also the one for sci-fi, if anyone ever wants to go back. Cool. I like that. And that one was actually based off of a book from H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, which is just 2 actually huge names as well. Yeah. Like, I almost kind of was like Stephen King of that era. Not just saying because of the horror genre, but the really, like, Stephen King's always going to be going down in history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Regardless if people love his books or his movies or his movie.
The stories behind how his movies got made, that guy's fucking crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, like pretty much since the dawn of movies, there's been we've been making movies off of books and stuff. Like it is like a lot of them are like I think even some of them are like a lot of them are done off of lore, which we'll be like talking about next actually, roughly as things are all mixed up on my notes. So like a lot of the stories that he made and a lot of other directors kind of around this time around the world, there is a painting off of a legend, Faust, I believe it's pronounced, which is pretty much a gentleman that had made a deal with the devil.
Right, yeah.
For ultimate wisdom and worldly pleasures and stuff, in return for his soul and stuff. And that's where actually a lot of imagery. I almost want to say the haunted castle and this movie as well, Le Cauldron Infernal.
That's the one I've definitely seen. Yeah.
Also known as the Infernal Cauldron in Britain and the Infernal Cauldron of Phantasmal Vapors in 1903 in the United States. Because, all right, this is where I think the whole history actually becomes really kind of start becoming a little bit interesting. First off, the movie was about like 3 victims, getting thrown into a cauldron. For the most part, and later on you see them turn into spirits, which at the same time you got to think 1903. Those spirits are pretty awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good for. I mean, come on, man. If you're gonna be stoked about how they did the Invisible Man, I mean, this is way before that. They did a great job with that.
30 plus years before it, and it's just like, oh my, it's so amazing. But later on, like those spirits become vengeful and try to attack that demon. And the demon ends up, after being attacked, for the most part, jumps in the cauldron and sacrifices himself, which is just pretty awesome. You have flames coming out of nowhere and stuff. Like it's, again, 1903, pretty awesome. So this movie, not only did this, was kind of like one of his final straws with copyright issues and people stealing.
Yeah.
He also, to combat this, he ended up making a camera where it would be, he used 2 lenses and 2 reels to record it and stuff. So they were pretty much side by side. So he would actually have one negative for, France or Europe and all that stuff to show, and then another negative to show across the world and all that stuff to pretty much travel. I bring this up because due to this, the way that he shot this film, along with I think 2 other films that he did back here just fairly recently, from Lobster Films here in the 2000s, which is like a film company that does researching. When you actually kind of place the negatives on top of each other, they're 3D.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So it was unintentional, but he also created like some of the first 3D movies. Like, this man is freaking amazing. Like, I mean, you can't, like, he's like freaking phenomenal. Like, from his movies getting trampled on to creating a genre that hasn't and won't die.
Yeah. Well, I didn't feel that one.
The only people that die are on screen.
Yeah.
But he's done sci-fi. He's made accidental 3D movies 100 years later, but he's made 3D movies.
The first 3D movie was a horror. That's awesome.
It's
accidental, but it's still fucking cool.
I didn't even think about it, like the first one being like horror. That's that is actually pretty awesome. Damn it, I wish I would have thought of that. All right, we're edit it, so I said that first. But all right, so we're gonna kind of stop there a little bit with France. We're gonna move over to America, where like around 1902, George sent his brother. Oh, I'm gonna assume Gaston, because I know French, their G's or J's, if I'm not mistaken, over in North America in New York to help protect the copyrights of George's films that were now being distributed like around the world for this time. A little background or a little bit of Gaston's. We're just gonna call him Gaston. Like, I rather mispronounce it all the time than attempt to mispronounce it close to the proper way. Like, he was actually making documentaries, and like he actually started making movies as well in North America. He started doing documentaries, like kind of during his move to like San Antonio, where he was actually helped create Star Film Ranch. So he was making Star Films that was over in France, over here in America, to help protect his brother's movies.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
While he was making his own. He later moved on to Santa Paula, California. Basically, with what I could find, is just because it's beautiful there. You know what I mean? Better weather. It's always been beautiful for the most part. The beaches have changed if you know the history on California beaches. And if you could look past things nowadays, California is beautiful. As much as Seattle's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, LA, Seattle, I don't like either. I get it. Beautiful
Yay,
state.
cities.
Beautiful state.
Yeah, California beaches are the only beaches I've been to other than up here in Pacific Northwest. Like, Pacific Northwest beaches aren't beaches.
No, hell
I'm
no.
sorry, like,
They're fucking cold.
yeah, water's
Rocky as
gray
hell.
and just, God. But, all right, so that's pretty much the Méliès brothers. So around this time, Thomas Edison was creating his own patents, you know, for the kinetoscope, which was another thing that a lot of us kind of are pretty aware of, is that box where people kind of looked into and cranked and saw the
like
pictures actually moving. Yeah. So I mean, it was that was his pretty much invention. So it was motion picture movies, but these were individuals seeing the movie. You know, while across the seas, they were making movies for multiple people to see. You know, I mean, not a lot of people came, but people came, and that was, you know, just enthralled by motion pictures on a screen being projected. But he was also, with what I found, it could be wrong, but some of the stories what I heard about him isn't untrue. The guy was kind of a dick. He pretty much
that happens.
But he like pretty much went around suing anyone that was making movies, saying that it was his movies. Like, he's the only one that can make movies. Like, him and his company.
Oh shit.
And stuff. Like I know there's more to it, but I hate looking like into negativity, and especially, I mean, I did do some research into him, but I'm not interested in Thomas A. Edison.
All right, yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, like I haven't, like I said, I haven't heard like he's a great inventor. A lot of things I heard, like he did not actually steal things from like Nikola Tesla and stuff like this. Like he made things better in some ways, but people believe what they want to believe. I'm not going to be here to dissuade someone from looking into the correct things. But he did have his hand in movie making for the most part. He was really never like in front of the camera, but he did a lot more behind the scenes. Like, he was predominantly producing films. Like, he would also create like the first movie studio in America, which was called the Black Maria in like 1893, which kind of helped him get a kind of clasp on movies being made here in America, which I think he also kind of, because of how things went, and due to him and some of his filmmakers are going to be like the wrong word. A lot of his like other producers and films that he was creating, they ended up banding together to create the Motion Picture Patents Company, MPPC. That kind of helped him own movies that were being made. A lot of people didn't like this. A lot of the movie makers, including Gaston, which this is one of the reasons that caused a lot of people to move out west, you know, to move to find a new frontier.
Right.
Which is kind of the birth of Hollywood. So he is kind of loosely the reason why Hollywood is Hollywood.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
That's changed a lot, but
it has.
that's pretty cool.
Like I will do more research into him. As much as I don't want to, I will when we start talking more about American movies and about the whole birth. Yeah, around 1894, Edison's Black Maria studio was moved to New York and was pretty much rebranded as the Edison Company. Edison was never really known for making movies, but producer. The whole filming process. With what I found, he ended up buying, I guess, what you could kind of consider like a flat on top of a building where it had like glass panels, and he was able to kind of help control the lighting and stuff to try to get the max out of every out of every hour of the day, which George ended up doing that as well. Like I think he ended up building a house that would actually rotate and stuff. Like it's just the ingenuity of what they had to do, and it's by today's measures is like almost so extreme. But I guess almost kind of looking at it really quickly, like kind of not looking back. Nightmare on Elm Street, they built a whole room to rotate.
Yeah.
That ended up not rotating.
Yeah, there was some issues there, but it still made a great scene.
So I mean, I guess people still do it now, but I guess now they use computer graphics because it's just cheaper and easier. For instead of building a house just to destroy it in some cases.
But I still like the way you gotta. The Thing is a fantastic reason. Sometimes you gotta build it by hand to give that.
Make it
extra.
Make something real so it looks real.
Yeah.
Weird how that works.
Crazy.
Who would have ever known? God. All right. Sorry, this is definitely gonna be kind of getting cut right here. All right. So around like 1900, I want to say this is like the first movie that was kind of a horror movie made in America. We already did kind of talk about it a little bit, but it was made from Edwin S. Porter, a film called Faust and Marguerite, and it was based off the French play called Faust et. I'm reading too much into it. Faust et Margarita. Faust was made a deal with the devil, as we talked about, for unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures. What I took from it, from the movie itself, because it has Mephistopheles, like the demon, making it like trying to bribe Faust, because so his Marguerite is sitting there in a chair. Mephistopheles is bribing, like telling him, cut off, kill Marguerite's, like cut her throat and all this stuff. Faust is saying no, then Mephistopheles goes over to Marguerite and says, cut his throat and stuff, just trying to bribe him, which is actually kind of crazy. So I think, if I remember correctly, he ended up trying to kill Marguerite. She transforms into Faust, and then Mephistopheles is like, "What what's going on here?" Turns back, then it turns back into Marguerite. And I think like for the most part, Mephistopheles just kind of gives up stuff like. By the looks of it, I mean, this is a silent film. There is no dialogue. I think a lot of this time they have yet to start putting on pretty much like the scripts, like on the things for the words. But yeah, like this is all the lore behind like the painting, the play, like a lot of history is from this lore.
Yeah, I want to say I seen that a little snippet of that play being reenacted in a movie.
Like
they kind of touched on the deal with the devil scene.
I'm probably sure like even Futurama has probably even talked about this.
I know
like,
Futurama has, but I'm trying to remember the damn movie. I can't remember it right now.
No worries at all, man.
Killing me.
But yeah, I think like a lot of it finds its or a lot of media nowadays and back then took it from that lore. By the sounds of it, but yeah, the U.S. did kind of continue making some horror movies. One of them was actually based off of a novel. There was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1908, Otis Turner. There was also Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1912 from Lucius Henderson. There was also another movie called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Sweet Jesus. Holy fuck.
Mind you, this is 1913, a year later, from Herbert Brennan. But the nice thing about this one, the one in 1913, if you want to say it's nice, it was produced independently by IMP, and that later on became that film studio, for the most part, later on became Universal Studios.
Oh, right on.
So, I mean, third time's a charm, it creates Universal Studios. But at the same time, though, with just that little bit of information, it goes to show you that American movies has not changed at all. We will remake and redo the same damn movie.
That shit to death. Yep.
But that proves that eventually you will get a Universal Studio movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, not much has
Definitely
changed.
been working for the slashers, that's for sure.
Oh man, America, we rape, pillage, and burn. We take what we like, and we make it our own, for better or usually for worse or for worse. But around this time, from J. Shirley Dolly was the first Frankenstein movie in 1910 and stuff.
That's one of my favorites right there.
Which this isn't the one that more than likely that you've seen, or you might have seen this image before. He is a lot more. I don't want to use the word grotesque, but he's not the typical monster that everyone thinks of when you think of Frankenstein's monster. If I remember correctly, they try to make him a little bit less sympathetic, even that more so than the actual Frankenstein that everyone knows. That was in 1930, the 1930s. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of awesome to kind of learn that a lot of these early movies were based off of books and literature and stuff. Not much has changed as well. As I've already said probably 20 times in this episode, a lot of movies have and always will be made from literature.
You gotta have a script for a movie, right? The books are already halfway there.
That's exactly there. Halfway there. That's as far as I'm going. Yeah, so with Edison pretty much cornering the U.S. market at this time, and Méliès and the Lumière's brothers cornering Europe's market, there was also a boom in Japan that was kind of happening around this time. I've read two things where the Lumière brothers ended up taking their camera like on the road and actually did like not events but like almost expos showing off the camera, like what they were able to do. Right. And that's how a lot of people started filming around that time frame. Was they were taking their camera around like, hey, look what we're doing, and other people wanted to do the same thing. But the other story I heard was there was a gentleman from Japan that went over to France and ended up going to school with one of the Lumière brothers around this time and saw what they were doing, and then he brought it back. But one thing that does, like, I couldn't find anything else that was different other than all this being the same. I guess they did bring the camera over to Japan, and like the first Japanese movie was in 1897, pretty much the sights of Tokyo, which it was just kind of like an image, motion picture of the landscape of Tokyo at the time.
Video tour kind of thing.
Yeah, like it was, by the sounds of it, pretty nice. You know, I mean, kind of showing around like, hey, this is Tokyo, which I imagine is probably just as awesome then as it was now in its own right. But quickly followed up by that was, all right, here's some good punishment of some names and some words. It was followed up by Shiro Asano. He made two films. One of them was a horror ghost film called Bake Jizo. Otherwise translated over to Jizzo the Spook.
Oh, well.
And that one, actually, I'm going to hold off on description of that movie for the moment. Another movie that he ended up making was Shannon no Sose, Resurrection of a Corpse. These are actually pretty brutal freaking names. I mean, leave it to Japan to make something brutal. This is in 1898. Around this time, they were doing a lot of kabuki and banruko style theater prior to a lot of these movies coming on, which a lot of them they would actually end up creating. They were their own theater, but a lot of them they would actually end up speaking and acting during the movies to kind of create a voice during the movies, stuff which actually I think is kind of awesome when you don't have any sound of voice. I know we did music to kind of go along with the movie, to kind of
a little piano play in the background.
Oh yeah, and there was nothing. There was no standard to those movies either. So you could watch that movie in multiple states, and the movie could possibly mean 20 other things because of whoever and however they played the music.
Right.
Their interpretation of it, which could possibly make a scary movie not so scary because they were playing joyful music. There's a chance of that. But I don't get that. I don't feel that way from a lot of the Japanese culture for the most part. They have been, and I believe they still are deeply ensconced in their roots of belief and compassion for the most part. However, one wants to take the compassion, because that could mean kind of anger or love and everything else.
Yeah.
But they are a little bit of the extremists on that end. Extremist might be the wrong word, but yeah. So Shannon no Sose had a plot where the corpse ended up falling out of a coffin that was being carried by two guys, and the corpse coming back to life. Pretty short. It was a short, supposedly. And Bake Jizo, there's nothing on it.
It just fucking disappeared?
Yes. Pretty. So the only reason we know this movie exists for the most part, I think, is in 1920. I think the cameraman ended up talking about it and talking a little bit about just filming the movie. The only thing that we could kind of think of because of it is Jizo is a statue of a Buddhist Bodhisattva that is known for being a guardian of children's souls for the most part. So he's a protector of kids, the guardian angel.
Right.
With Bake translating to spook, ghost, or phantom, which is led to believe to be a haunting movie, almost paranormal.
Right.
But yeah, I guess it was a lot of World War II, and there was also which I thought I do have here. A lot of Japanese early films were lost to an earthquake in 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake, and a lot of World War II.
Damn.
And stuff. It was just, so a lot of their film history is gone, vanished. These are the things that I hate so much, because if you have people that are just critiquing a movie and they edit it and just oh, we don't want to show it anymore, or it's just too violent or too whatever be the case. A lot of the time back then, even now, it's just gone.
Yeah.
Never to be seen again. I was that's a lot of people's hard work just to get those images on that film stock or on that hard drive or whatever, to never see the light of day anymore. That's just that part. Not even the other parts of actually editing and trying to clip it and glue it and all this stuff. And it's just it's, I guess, sad.
I heard that about some, as far as the original Universal monsters, and how the Frankenstein, there's that one scene where he throws the girl into the water, and you'll never see it because Karloff was shit's out. I'm not going to be a part of this if you show that. And it just got thrown away, and it's something that, if it's edited out, it's forgotten about. It's not something they just kind of put on the edited reel or some shit like that. It's just clipped and thrown out.
Yeah, like that's why like you also hear people saying like, oh, they're just clips on the editing room floor. You know, just
Right.
pretty much cut, dropped,
Shit.
done. You know, like that's. Thankfully, there are companies nowadays, like a lot of physical media companies that are going through clips for the most part. I don't know how they're going about it. I don't know the whole process, but they are actually going back and looking at like, oh, this is from this movie, and they're actually putting it together and actually creating deleted scenes and all this, like the bonus features in
Yeah.
movies. So they're actually bringing some of these things back to life, but a lot of them won't, because some of them, like George's, they were burned, they were trampled on, like literally trampled on
trampled
underfoot.
It
Yeah.
sucks.
But
It's pretty brutal.
yeah, this is gonna be the last little story for this episode, which I find quite fascinating. I shouldn't say fascinating because it's kind of fucked up, but I say fascinating because this happened in the late 1910s for the most part, which this is why it's not awesome, but it led to 2 suicides.
Holy shit.
Yeah, all based off of a study that I will look more into when we actually talk about this episode and the subject. But if anyone ever wants to look more into it, it's a Shinrigan experiment. So this is where this this college, university professor ended up doing. He studied numbers, if I'm not, or letters. I don't even think I have that written down what it was. But he ended up coming across these 2 women. Mifune Chizuku, which was acclaimed clairvoyant, and another woman called Nagawa Ikaku, which had thoughtography, which she was able to kind of burn images to a photographic plate, like of what she saw, like in her head for the most part. So
Pretty cool.
you had these 2 people that were being studied, like all right, like they were trying to almost disprove or prove what they were was actually true for the most part. Like if they could actually see through images or see through objects. I think one of the studies they ended up doing was they ended up writing a word or miscellaneous words, wrapping them up, putting them in like a lead box, and Mifune, she ended up guessing it right. But I guess she kind of cheated, supposedly, like where she asked for a piece of paper for something, and then she ended up seeing the answer. I will look more into it and stuff because it is actually a decent sized article. This happened like over for like 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. Or it was like 3 years until the book came out because of the suicides.
No.
Later on, they tried to do it again, and she was too tired and she couldn't sum up the power to do it all. But some of it got out because of her faking that first incident or cheating on that first incident. It got out to the public, and they started.
Yeah.
They did what we do nowadays.
Sounds right.
Like they bullied them.
Yeah.
You know, whether they were wrong or they were right, they believed what they wanted to believe. I wasn't there. I don't know.
Right, clearly.
But these 2 women did end up committing suicide. Not together, but pretty close together at the same time. I think around like 1911. Again, I couldn't find the movie. There was a paper that was, or a book that was written on this. They didn't want to publish it right away because of, I guess, just out of due to respect for the 2 women. And I couldn't find the movie as well because I'm assuming it probably got destroyed during World War II or during the earthquake or what have you.
That sucks. Oh man, there's so many things I'd like to see that it probably just destroyed, man.
But that was an influence for a extremely well-known Japanese movie that I felt pretty confident saying that pretty much everyone knows.
If it's the ring.
I don't know. You're gonna have to wait until we talk about the subject. But yeah, since I was loosely bringing up World War II, we're gonna end it right here, where like the beginning of Nemo War starts. And I say Nemo because Wilhelm Kaiser ended up starting a little war called World War I around all of this time. So I mean, it's a little bit.
It's crazy.
It's just a little bit crazy, I mean, like nothing huge happens. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, I mean, this is kind of a little bit of history on horror movies itself, predominantly in France, some in America, and some in Japan. I guess, come back and give us a watch on YouTube. Give us a listen. I think we are officially on iHeart. I still have to look into that.
I think we're up on Instagram. We don't have anything posted on there yet.
Yeah,
we can be contacted on Instagram.
We're bad at the medias.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bad at medias. But yeah, man, it's just kind of crazy on just that whole history of like piracy. Like, I'm pretty sure piracy happened like in like literature and books.
Oh yeah.
Like
plagiarism's for sure a thing. Yeah.
And it's always happened in movies as well. I mean, since the dawn. I mean, you can see that internet hasn't made it. It just made it more accessible, but that's right. It was nothing new. Like completely nothing new for this.
Can't stop.
But yeah, come back with us next time for our next subject. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Give us a follow, give us a watch, give us a listen. Let us know, all one of you, what we should do next, or if there's something that you find interesting that we should do a little bit of research on. Yeah. Again, I'm Curtis Gerhart.
I'm Stephen Miller.
And we Horror Problem. See ya next time.